Hello, hello. Welcome everyone. Happy Tuesday. Hi. Hey Jess, how are you? Good, good. Nice to see everyone. Hey Angela. I love when I can see an actual face. All right. Well, hello. Happy Tuesday. Glad everyone is here. We are going to have a fantastic session today with Elise. And so I can't wait to dive into that, but just want to give a few little shout outs. So I'm hoping that I will be seeing lots of you guys at Pantheon. It is coming up. We are less than 30 days away, less than a month away. I know our next meeting, we will have our be at Pantheon before we have our next meeting. So that is super exciting. But I want to make sure that all of you guys know, you should have heard by now, but we are hosting a women's block party the night of opening night there on Wednesday, September 17th. Lady Titans, along with Women in HVAC, will be hosting a super fun party. We're going to have a bead bar, a photo booth. We're going to have a Sunnies bar. You can make your own Sunnies. There's going to be some cool painting things because we are painting the town red because that is what women in the trades do. We have to kind of carve our own path, make our own way. And so it will be a super fun time. We'll have some drinks, t-shirts there for the first people that come and get there. So make sure it is on your calendar. Make sure to come by. See us, as we like to say in the South, like hug your neck. Okay, we want to hug your neck so that we don't see everyone just here on Zoom. Seeing everyone live in person is what we are so looking forward to. So make sure your calendar is marked. It is completely free. Okay, you do not have to pay anything. You do not have to go off site anywhere. Just mosey on over to the Marriott Hotel, which is connected to the convention center, and we will be having a good time. So make sure your calendars are marked. Can't wait to see all of you there. And then I am so excited today to introduce Elise, our guest speaker today. So I heard her speak in Michigan. We are at a ACA event in Michigan this spring, and I was like, you know what? I think you have some really great insight and experience here from a topic that's been very requested from you guys of how do I lead up? How do I have hard conversations with my own boss, or if my boss or the owner of the company is somewhat of the problem, the culture problem that we have here? What are ways of how we can lead up and make a difference from the position of where we're at? And so when I heard Elise speak, I knew she was going to be great to talk on this topic. And so Elise Radawitz is the president and founder of Velocity Leader, a leadership development company that equips, energizes, and engages leaders in the home services. She has a background in HVAC distribution, and Elise blends industry expertise with a passion for helping contractors thrive, inspiring growth and success across all levels in the trades. And so, Elise, thank you so much for being here. I am so excited for this session, and so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it. So I am super happy to be here. Let me just start by sharing my screen and make sure I'm sharing the right one. That's always fun. All right, here we go.
And I'll give one other tidbit. So Elise was actually just recognized on ACHR News Top 40 Under 40. So I know that just released last week. So Elise was one of those. So congratulations on that, and super happy. The timing worked out well to have you here today.
Yeah, it sure did. Well, and congratulations back to you, my friend. So yeah, kind of a really fun award to be recognized, and one I was working on for a few years. So yeah, thank you. So let me go into a little bit of kind of what to expect for today. Know that this has been a requested topic, and so I want to make sure that you get as much out of it as you can and make this so much about you. Like if you have a specific scenario or situation as we go through that you want to speak up and have, even just ask me. I'm happy to do it. So I have about 20 years of experience in HR. So I joke like either I've been delivering these messages or I've had to receive them. So I have a decent amount of experience in just having difficult or awkward or very just transparent conversations. It's something that, I think that we sometimes we're in the unique position of having to manage up. Sometimes they are owning the business, which can be even more potentially uncomfortable, but really we're all people at the end of the day. And so that's what I want to recognize is in these conversations. That's really what we're kind of angling towards is having that trust with the other person as the prerequisite to have any conversation is really what we're driving towards. So a little bit about why I do it. So Emily gave a great overview as my HVAC background and distribution. I was there for 10 years. The cute gentleman next to me on the screen is my husband. He is a carpenter. He owns his own business. So when I say that my heart is with the trades, like I very much mean that to the core of who I am. I started Velocity Leader to only work with companies in the trades because I think that we are in a unique position where a lot of times we focus on the work and we don't necessarily focus on the people. And so what I want to bring back is the human centeredness of managing people. And yes, we have to get the work done through them, but really what I'm noticing is didn't have the best role models in this industry for maybe emotionally intelligent, calm leaders. And I can say that growing up with my dad, who I was holding the flashlight for and kind of got the elbow every once in a while if you weren't doing it right. So really, I think that the trades needs a little bit more of that, the humanness in it, even if I can call it touchy feely shit. We're going to talk about some of that. So that's what I'm trying to bring back in the work that I do. So on the right here, that picture is me at the ICP Elite Dealer meeting, having had the opportunity to deliver this content, some of what you're going to experience today in a one-day workshop for HVAC contractors. So last year I trained over 150 contractors. This year my goal is to double that, and I'm on pace to do that. So I absolutely love this industry and started this business to serve you all. So first things first, when we think about communication, because truly when I look at a topic like, okay, how do I manage up? How do I have a difficult conversation? To me, it's a communication issue that we're trying to solve. And where I want to start with that is typically we're going to talk or we're going to communicate from our preferred style. And I'll tell you about what that means in a little bit. But it's what I mean by that is we need to understand what's our style first and then recognize the person we're talking to, what's their style. Because otherwise, I'm a high energy person. If you can't tell already, I'm going to probably talk very quickly. I'm going to have to, I'm going to be driven. I may exhaust and overwhelm people that are a slower style and pace to me. So recognizing that right off the bat is how I'm going to need to know some of that. I mean, if this is somebody, your boss, let's say you've worked with for a while, you'll probably know a little bit about their style. And so there's a couple questions you can ask. One, I'm going to say I'm going to ask you these questions for you and also for them. So I want to keep both of those in mind. But really where I'm going to go is I'm going to lean on the assessment work that I do. So behavioral profile assessments, that can sound like a very large thing. These are going to be assessments like predictive index, if you've heard of that one, Myers-Briggs, Clifton Strengths, Colby, Enneagram's a free one that I really like, and then DISC. So real quick in the chat, I just want to get an idea. Has anyone taken a DISC assessment before or have heard of the DISC? Okay, I see Jess raising her hand. Cool. If you want to type 1 in the chat, then I can, or yes, either way, I can kind of get a gauge. Ooh, nice. Okay, so we have quite a few. So that is I am certified to teach DISC. So that's one of the things that in my kind of toolbox or arsenal that I'm going to go to. And DISC is awesome because it helps us just get an idea of so our behaviors are set when we're about 17 years old. Our personalities, behavioral traits, they're set by the time we're 17. And it really doesn't change unless we go through a really major life event. We're pretty much going to be who we are by that time. And what I've noticed, and I'll say for myself, what I've noticed, I've just gotten a stronger inclination to the style. So I've always been outgoing, fast paced. I mean, I walk fast, I talk fast. Maybe it's the northerner in me potentially. But really what I've noticed in my DISC assessment results is I've just grown more confident and comfortable in that style. And that's great in some ways, but we can also overplay a strength and it can become a weakness. And that's where I want to just start with this. So I'm going to ask you we'll go through really quick for those of you that don't know DISC, but it sounds like we have a pretty good mix here, which is awesome, of people that a lot of people have knowledge on it. So DISC is really just all we're doing is we're measuring an individual's tendencies and priorities. And so it's not pass fail. It's just another way for us to learn more about ourselves. And what we're trying to do is really when we understand our behaviors, kind of what makes us tick, it's easier for us to get a little bit of insight into how other people work and how they communicate and what their preferences are, because that'll allow us to connect with them more and we'll have better relationships at home and at work because of it. So I'm going to ask you this question. And for now, I'm going to have you, actually, if you have a piece of scratch paper on the next to you, write down your boss's name and write down your name. Because with these two questions, you can pretty well identify what your style is if you haven't taken DISC yet, and you can pretty much narrow in on that person's style. So the first question I'm going to ask you, how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as more fast-paced and outspoken? Or do you see yourself as more cautious and reflective? I'm asking that for you first. And then I want you to think of your boss or whoever this person needs to be, like that maybe there's a critical conversation that you need to have that you've been avoiding. All right. How do you see them? And just jot that answer down. Fast-paced and outspoken or cautious and reflective. Okay. So if you said you saw yourself or this person as more fast-paced and outspoken, that is going to be a D or an I style. That's going to tell us if we're up in the graph or we're lower. Cautious and reflective, our S's and C's are going to be slower in pace. They're going to need more time. And of course, I'm going to go through each letter in a little bit and I'll kind of really unpack each one for you. But that's essentially an idea of where they're going to fall. Either going to, the D's and I's are going to work well together because they're more fast-paced, outspoken. They are quicker on taking action. And the S's and C's are going to be a little slower in pace, a little more cautious. Okay, second question. Do you see, so let's say a new project or new information comes to you, right? Maybe we're going to do this new thing. Are you going to be more questioning and skeptical? Or are you going to be more accepting and warm? Meaning, okay, like I have a couple questions, or you're kind of like, yeah, okay, I may have some questions, but mostly you're like, I'm all in, I'm bought in, let's go, right? How do you see yourself? And then again, same question for your boss. Where do they fall? Are they more questioning and skeptical, kind of like, I'm not really sure about that. I have some questions. And there's no right or wrong, by the way. It's pretty much gut instinct, right? Okay, so of those two questions, or that question with the two answers, if they're more or you're more questioning and skeptical, you're going to be a D or a C style. Okay? And so the other thing I want to bring into focus is the D's and C's are going to gravitate more towards task-focused experiences. All right? The I's and S's are going to be more accepting and warm. They're your people. They're going to gravitate to tasks or things that involve people. I'm going to send somebody to a home show. I'm going to pick an I or an S on my team, or a conference or whatever, a B&I group. D's and C's definitely have their place. It would force them out of their comfort zone a lot more if I put them into a situation like that, just as an experience, and then the other thing, like to think about it, let's say you're a technician. Well, if they're like, hi, Mrs. Jones, where's the furnace? And they go right downstairs, probably going to be a D or a C. Like they just want to get to work, don't want to have the small talk, just want to get the stuff done. Again, not bad either way. We need all of the styles to work together. So putting those two questions together now, if let's say for you or your boss, right? If you're more fast-paced and outspoken and questioning and skeptical, you're going to land in that D area. Our dominant drivers are the D's. If you're more fast-paced, outspoken, accepting and warm, you're going to be an I style or influencers. Our S's are going to be accepting and warm, but they're going to be more cautious and reflective. And then lastly, our C's, and I'll keep this up. And by the way, take screenshots, do whatever. I'm going to share this presentation with Emily afterwards so you can have all the slides. The C's are going to be more cautious and reflective and questioning and skeptical. C's love a lot of information to know before they can move forward on a decision. I see Jess going, yep. All right. So that's a little bit of an overview as to like where we land. And now we'll go a little bit deeper. Okay, so this is really the DISC model in and of itself. And we're not always just a straight D, I, S, or C. Of course, we're a blend. We're all snowflakes and unique in our own way. What I mean by that is, and you'll even see some influence on, if you actually take the DISC assessment, you'll see some shading in different regions too. Like I'm an I, no, I know you're shocked, fast-paced, outspoken, very friendly. I have a lot of D tendencies in my shading because I have worked with a lot of D styles in my career. I enjoy the pace of a D, the fact that I can be very direct and blunt with them and just be like, what are we doing with this? And like shooting a text or sending a Teams chat and being very direct. That version of me though comes home and I married an S. That S does not appreciate that style when I walk through the door. And I've learned this. I've been with my husband 18 years. Like at some point I have to adjust. Like it's not on him to adjust his style. Yes, okay. It's on me to adjust my style. And so Me coming home to an S, I need to give him more thought. I need to give him time with a question, not bury him in questions. That's a different issue. But those are things that we need to do to adjust the style. So I'm going to go through D really quick. Ds are going to be in direct in their communication, firm, strong-willed. They're very driven. Ds also, like, they're the people that I have 10 minutes left. What 5 things can I get done in the next 10 minutes? Gotta love the drive, right? I's, we are going to be, and I say we, or I'm an I, outgoing, enthusiastic, lively, like we're the life of the party. We're always thinking about the party and how we can make the experience better. Those are going to be the I styles. The S's are going to be like I like to say your steady Eddies, it's a consummate team player. They're very much about harmony, very much patient, accommodating, like you're such a great team player. They'll sacrifice themselves though at the expense of a team too. Like they're the ones that are quietly ones you want to keep checking in on. But they're great. C's are also great. C's are they love a process, they love a system, whether they have one or they're creating one or both. A C is great for that. They're going to be more reserved. They're going to be more precise, systematic. I see a lot of technicians in the S's and C's styles. I also see that come up in owners too, because we have of course technicians that turned owners, right? So that's a little bit of the overview of the different styles, just to give you an idea of where we're going. So this should hopefully help you understand where we're going in terms of, okay, if I'm thinking of the person in my head that I need to have this conversation with, how do I have that conversation? How do I adjust my style? How do I adjust it for a D, an I, an S, and a C? So let's get into that. D's, again, these are going to be our fast-paced, outspoken folks. They're also going to be questioning and skeptical. I left this phrase. I did a workshop with a contractor a few weeks ago, and they were like, "Oh, so don't bore us, get to the chorus." Got it. Like D's are very direct. They value action over analysis. So D's want action, and I want you to think about that in your communication style. They're assertive. So what I want you to do is if you're not super confident going into this conversation with the D, make sure you have at least your data points in mind, because they're gonna pull on tone. I'm not pull on tone. I'm like, they're gonna pick up on tone more. And so I want you to be assertive and pay attention to tone. D's can also be tone deaf. So the good news is I feel like if you're having this difficult conversation with your boss and they're a D, the more direct and the more factual you can be, the better. That's my advice to you on a D. You can't, not that they don't have feelings, they do. They're just, they don't wear them on their sleeves as much as an I, put it that way. So short, focused communication, bulleted lists, yes or no questions. Like a D, I don't need all the background on the situation or the scenario. I just need you to tell me what you're doing about it, or what do you need me to make a decision on. D's are very comfortable making decisions quickly. So if you're having a difficult conversation with them, think about, like, maybe it was something that they did, that you're kind of bringing up. Hey, can I give you some feedback on that? Or can I share with you what I've seen? Some of that is you're going to have tact to that, and I'll give you some best practices on how to have the conversation in a little bit. But those are some things. D's, I would also tell you, if you're an I or an S, a D is going to seem somewhat unapproachable at times because they just heads down. They don't think about the small talk. It's usually what's going on, what problems we need to solve, and they go right into that mode. And so that's where I feel like I's and S's, I will say, is a strength. Remind them, hey, that person's wife's name is X, or their dog is this, or their kids' names. Like that was always kind of the approach I took with working with D's, was reminding them about the people, because they tend to have conversations around the work and go right into that. All right, so I's, fast-paced, outspoken, very warm and friendly. We're like, we're the golden retrievers of the world, I suppose. So communication tips for us. We prefer the big picture, not always details. We have systems for that, to be fair. I'm not going to defend myself too much here. Ask them open-ended questions. So an I likes to talk. And because of that, we're not always the best listeners. So I tend to say you give them an open-ended question, not just yes or no, because an I will definitely tell you without a filter, pretty much, how they're feeling, what they're seeing, they're always usually really tapped into the grapevine. So that's one of the things that comes down on an I negatively, is that sometimes they go too much on emotion and they don't bring enough facts in. And so if you're an I, just know that, like if you're talking to a D or a C, you're going to want to bring in more data for those types of people. And S would definitely want some more emotions, or, hey, I saw this person, or they felt like this, or they shared that feeling. And S is going to be more open to that. D's and C's are kind of like, give me the facts. What I get that people talk to you and there was emotion there, but where do we go forward? Again, yeah, they're going to need to be reminded to listen. I's, if we can help them focus the conversation by giving bullet points or letting them know what the expectations are out of this conversation, or, hey, here's what I want to accomplish today, that's going to help an I stay on track. All right, so S's, and hopefully I'm not running through these too quickly, but I really want to get time for you guys to like just open chat, ask me questions, because I think that might be the most helpful. Okay, so S's, we're going to be more cautious and reflective, but also accepting and warm. S's are going to enjoy small groups or one-on-one work. S's, like, they need to have that comfort level. They're not going to open up readily, especially because they don't want to ruffle feathers or rock the boat. Getting them to open up to you in a one-on-one situation is going to be much more helpful if you're having that conversation. They're very comfortable with routine and predictable procedures, which is why if you are going to give an S questions, give it to them ahead of time. If you have questions for them, ask them ahead of time, let them know what to expect. And I would say that for everybody, but particularly S's. D's and I's, because of their faster pace, they're going to be easier to just answer questions more rapid fire. But an S or a C is going to want more time to think about those questions. They're very thoughtful, and they don't want to hurt feelings and all of those kinds of things. They also don't want to be seen as not liked, right? So that's the other thing, is just to keep in mind for the S's, they also take in a great amount of detail and don't always share it. They take in a lot of the world, and they are, I would say, sometimes more tapped into the grapevine than an I, and see things differently. So I like the perspective of an S, but they're not going to necessarily share that in a large group. So having a one-on-one conversation, or even in a smaller group with an S, is going to be helpful for you. And they might have, like I said, they might avoid constructive feedback because they don't want to hurt someone's feelings, or don't want to be perceived as, like they don't want to hurt someone, or be perceived as like towing the company line potentially. S's, and this came from this workshop I just did. They were like, if you want to know about us, ask us questions. Don't assume that you know what I think about XYZ situation. Ask them questions. That came directly from a room full of S's. So, and then again, provide those ahead of time if you can. All right, C's are conscientiousness players. More cautious and reflective, very skeptical and questioning. A C likes to have data. They are sticklers for detail and accuracy. So because of that, they have very high standards for performance. And I just want you to know that going in, like they're not going to want to hear an excuse of why something went wrong. They're going to want to know, okay, what are you doing about it? And I also want you to know that it is hard for a C in general, and these are all broad statements, and again, everybody is a little bit different, right? But it is hard for them to demonstrate gratitude. So if you're looking for a big showy praise of like, hey, I want to recognize this person, a C, and I stepped in this with somebody on my team, they don't love the public praise. And even when you do give them like gratitude or praise in private, they may not give you that big show of emotion that you're looking for. They're going to internalize it. They're going to hear it, right? Maybe a printed piece or something is going to be different for them to feel what you're sharing. Okay, they crave data and gather facts. So if you are giving feedback or having to manage up or giving a difficult conversation, make sure that you are bringing data to that conversation as much as you can. Of course, make sure it's your own data and not like others potentially. Usually my gut instinct in HR was, if I got 3 data points from the same data point, 3 different people, that's when I was like, I gotta fly this up now. So that was the way that, and I reported to a C. So that was kind of my gauge at the time. C's are going to be very reluctant to make quick decisions. Give them time. So if you are waiting on, maybe your boss is a C and it takes forever for them to make decisions, okay, maybe give them a time frame. Hey, I need this answer by this point, or remind them of the timeline. And there's nuance to that, especially because it's your boss, right? But in general, give them time. That's the thing my husband and I have the most fights about, is the sense of urgency and taking action. We just have a very different sense of urgency in our lives, and so it's really have to think about that. They're going to be quiet and thoughtful. And so again, I want you to, not that you want to completely be somebody that you're not, but I want you to mirror their style a little bit too. So if it is an S or a C and you're a D or an I, slow down your pace, ask them questions, pause when you ask, this is crazy, pause when you ask a question and like wait for them to respond. I know that sounds ridiculous, but like as an I, I've had to be like, I've had to train myself in saying that question and letting it be awkward or quiet. It's okay to have silence because other people are thinking. Okay, yes, they're going to be more introverted and more reserved. So these are a couple just some communication tips on maybe you learned something about you in this last 5 minutes, maybe you learned something about your boss. What I want to go into now is, okay, so let's say we're going to have that conversation. I'm going to deliver this feedback. There's a scenario where I watched an interaction with I don't know, my boss said something and I was like, oh, that was really received poorly by the rest of the team. And I need to tell you how to go about it. What I want you to be aware of is that anytime we receive feedback as humans, this image or the narrative, the talk track in our heads of I'm not enough comes up. It's very human, it's very real, but I want to bring it up because that's what can end up with people being really defensive when you give feedback. And so I want to recognize it. So in preparing for the conversation, here are some things that I've found to be really well, that work really well. When you're doing this, I want you to relate it to specific tasks and behavior. Be as specific as you can so that they know what it is that they did, because sometimes we are on autopilot and we don't slow down enough to go, oh, is that really that's what I said, or that's what you heard? And it's just a good awareness piece. Keep it short and targeted. And I would also say do this as quickly after you see, an interaction or something that you want to address, give the feedback as quickly as you can after it happens, but give yourself time to prepare a little bit. Focus on the present and the future, meaning, okay, this happened, but what are we going to do about it going forward? Like how do we move forward? So questions how this can sound is, how do we get even better? How can we prepare for the future? What did you learn from this project or experience? Now, this may be something where this is admittedly a little bit more focused on if I was maybe a boss giving this feedback to a team member, but you can ask this of your boss and say like, okay, what would you do differently? Or, how did you think that went? And sort of gauge their input on it first. And that can help you to navigate the conversation. Be genuine and sincere. Don't sugarcoat it. That's not going to help anybody in any situation. I mean, what I want you to think about is if you're giving this feedback to somebody, you're doing it because you care about them. You're not doing it for some power play or something to just make them feel like shit, I hope. You're doing it because you care about them and because you want them to be a better version. And if no one ever gave me feedback that hurt, I would never have grown. And that's where I want you to think about this, is you're delivering this so that you can help them. And the other part I want to give you is, just because you view them this way or you view that interaction a particular way doesn't always make it right. Doesn't mean that it's the only way that it went down. I want you to, if you're going to give someone feedback, it is a two-way street. So I want you, you should be asking for their input as well, and asking for, hey, what's your response to what I just shared? It can be as simple as that, or help me understand what your perspective is. Because that's the thing, is it is going to be a two-way street and we're opening that up. So I want you to just know that. So those are some tips on preparing. Okay. Now asking for permission. And this is one, because this is where a little bit of messaging and some careful planning can come ahead of you before you, as an I have also just blurted out my thing. I'm thinking about it and I'm going to go talk to them right away. Right. I'm just going to get it off my chest, and that's not always the best approach. Sometimes it can be. I could have that conversation with a D and it would probably go over fine, or another I. Asking for permission gives us an idea of whether this person is open to receive the feedback in this specific moment. Okay. Are you open to feedback? Because sometimes their answer to that will be like, no, not right now. Or you'll gauge it based on how they respond. Can I give you some feedback? Can I get your advice on something? Because these are going to be some tricky conversations that you're having potentially. And it's like, well, I don't want to say that my way is the right way, but I do also want to give you feedback to let you know how I perceived that. And so that's where I'm like, hey, can I get your advice on something? These are just some softer openings. I'd like to get your advice on how I can get better on this in the future. This is if I'm flipping it to me asking for feedback, because sometimes I don't know about you, but I've worked with bosses where I'm like, I have no idea if I did that right, wrong, and different. I got nothing. So I'm looking for you to give me some feedback, which can also be managing up, quite frankly. If they don't know how to have these conversations, this is how you can lean into that. And sometimes when you ask people for advice, they're more willing to help you if you go first and be the one that's not okay or vulnerable. So this is another one. I noticed a couple things and I wondered if you were interested in some feedback. Just flat out ask them, are you interested in feedback? Sometimes they're not. Now, I would say if they answer that and they're like, no, not right now, I wouldn't, that's not a, okay, push past them and just deliver it. I would table that and I would say, okay, I'm going to hold that for a little bit and I'm going to deliver it maybe in a couple days or maybe next week. Because they're not going to be willing to hear you, which means they're not going to do anything about it because they don't care. I mean, essentially is what they're telling you. Okay, so now we're going to deliver the feedback. Biggest thing I can tell you is have this conversation in private. Do not have it out in the office space. Don't have it out back by the dumpsters that you think nobody can hear you. Have it in a one-on-one conversation. If you can do it face-to-face, even better. Never do it in public. The phrase that I've heard throughout my career has been praise in public, criticize in private. I see some head nods. Okay, other people see that. That's my advice to you. I wouldn't email, text, chat, none of this. It's a face-to-face conversation. If you care enough about this person to give them feedback and have this conversation, which is probably super cringy for you inside and awkward and like uncomfortable, then do it in person. Because guess what? They're going to see that all over your face and they're going to see that you care and they're going to hear it in the tone of your voice. That's why I'm like, if possible, face to face, like a FaceTime is the last resort. But I would really try to be, and yes, Renee, good point, depending on the level of feedback being delivered. It does depend on the feedback. I'd still say in private's where you want to do it. Even if it's like something you're praising them. Hey, I just want to tell you how awesome you are at doing this thing or how well you handled yourself in this situation. It doesn't have to be, feedback is not always negative. It can be positive too. All right, so that was a whole bunch of things. What are your questions? Do we have specific scenarios that you want guidance or input on? You can unmute or you can chat or whatever you need to do.
I can kick us off. I know some conversations have been had before. Sometimes I feel like we've expressed like, hey, our boss keeps this person who is maybe they're a high performer, but they are like the worst for culture. And like they are the negative Nelly. They are the ones that never follow the process. They break all the rules, but the boss like keeps putting up with them. Or maybe they are somewhat of a high performer outside in the field, but then once they get back to the like they are just absolutely terrible. Like the boss keeps them around. And it's just like an energy. So like, do you have a conversation with your boss around that? Do you not like how do you approach of, hey, do you care more about this person's performance and the profit than the rest of the people, or how much you have some of that conversation?
I would start by asking them how they view that person. Because what if they view that person in a different way than you do? Right? Or what if sometimes there's family connections. That's my brother-in-law, kind of got to deal with them, or that's my, we run into that a lot in this industry as well. I would first make sure that you know how that person views the person that you're talking about. Cause yeah, I mean, for sure, I've seen it. If you're that owner that's sitting there being like, oh, dang it, I have one of those people on my team. Yeah. What you're not changing, you're choosing, and everybody can see it. And that's the hardest part is, yeah, they're a high performer, but they're tainting the rest of us. And they're a culture contaminator at that point, which is no good. I think the biggest thing you want to share, because I think that it's fair, like what you just said, Emily, right? Like, I see this person and this is how they're viewed, and all of us see this, right? I guess I would say start by figuring out what they see, how they view that person. And from there, be like, well, what's the most important thing, or how can we help that person? How can we make, I think part of it is, can we help them to get better? Number one. Or if this is something that they're choosing, I mean, like sometimes people have blind spots that they don't even know that that's how they're showing up, or they're being perceived like that. And so that's where, yes, I want you to have that conversation with that person. And that can make sense. If you have a relationship with that person, giving them that feedback wouldn't hurt either. It doesn't always have to be the boss that's doing it. We have friendships in our companies all the time too. I mean, I had a friend that gave me feedback where she told me, she was like, I know how close you are with people and it's great. She goes, but I'm really nervous to get close to you because I've heard you overshare other people's stories before. And I went, oh, shoot. Like I never realized. And it was in my kind of, hey, I'm trying to show you how, yeah, Brian and I are super close and blah, blah, blah. And like, I didn't realize until she told me, I was like, dang, I get it. I wouldn't want to open up to me either. I would be really cautious to trust me too. Like that's a huge career limiting thing. And if she would have never told me that because it was, oh shoot, how do I give you this feedback? Like that's a story I tell over and over because it really stuck with me going, man, if she thinks that, I wonder how many other people think that or feel that when I'm with them. And that's where, she was a peer of mine. She didn't have to give me that feedback, but I'm sure glad she did.
Wow, that's great. Renee is asking, how do you implement this with your team members giving each other feedback or when bumping heads?
Start by modeling it first for them. Because it's what a lot of times I'll start on even just on the positive, because sometimes people aren't even comfortable sometimes people have grown up and I'm going to say growing up because it's that childhood and there's a lot of things that affect us even as kids. Some people were never told they were good enough, or they were never told they were going to, they all of us have different self-talk tracks in our head. And some people are genuinely not comfortable giving or receiving feedback. And so if that's the case, I say start with the positive, then find the good. Find something where you can say, I'm going to shout somebody out and I'm going to say that you're, you know what, you're really great at, Emily. You're so great at whatever, right? And you start by showing positive. If we can have those conversations, then we can start having the growth feedback conversations. That's where it's behavior that needs to be changed. But it starts with us as leaders. Sorry, this is always the case, leaders and managers. It always starts with us by just being the ones that model the way. And even if you're not in a management role, it's how can I be the one to give that feedback to my boss, to my people? Start with positive, and then we can work on having more difficult conversations. But the prerequisite for giving feedback in either scenario is trust. You have to have trust with people on your team. Otherwise, it's going to be, I don't know, like, I mean, if somebody gave me feedback who I didn't even know, okay, that's not going to mean as much as somebody who I have a relationship with.
So what do you do if, so you talked about like how to have these conversations. So you need to prepare, you need to ask for permission, and then like with that permission, like deliver the feedback. But like, you know, when you're talking about like your boss's blind spots and stuff, and like, what if you ask for the permission and like they never granted, or like, no, I never want, like, is that a sign of, hey, things will never change at this company? Like maybe I should look for something different, or is there a different approach or method? Like, what would you do in that scenario of like if you feel like your boss is never open to wanting or receiving feedback and you never have the opportunity to voice or bring some of those things up? Should you look for something else? What would you suggest there?
You the hardest thing is you can't control somebody else. You can give them all the feedback you want, but it's up to them and what they do with it. And so I mean, if you have someone, and you'll know, right? Like if it's the, do what I say, not what I do, or something, like they don't practice what they preach. That's one of the most damaging things you can do as a leader, is to be that person. They're gonna have turnover because people are gonna leave, because I'm not gonna then, okay, so you want me to do the heavy lifting of having these conversations, but you're not actually going to do the work yourself. Like, I just think it's really hard to respect somebody that way. And if you don't see them, even because this is self-awareness is everything. Like, I can say that I'm a really crappy listener because I'm an I, but that doesn't give me an excuse to never work on it. No, you need to work on it. And if I have someone that's not willing to work on it, nothing I say or do is going to change that person. I wouldn't say look for a new job. That's rough, but it's what do you value? Do you value? I mean, are you, for me, I'm like, I look up to my bosses. I look at them as people that I want to either be like, or I want to, I mean, hey, we've all had good and bad managers. Like I almost like draw a line down the middle of the paper, and good over here and bad over here. It's like that stark of a difference. To me, I want to be around people that elevate and make me better. And if that person isn't that person for me, then I'm probably going to see my way out at some point anyways.
That's a good point. Well, anyone else, any questions or any scenarios, or maybe you applied some of these things, or maybe by learning more about your own personality style, you were able to learn more about others and how you molded conversations with people at your same level or higher or lower there in the company. Any thoughts or feedbacks of how anyone applied this or needs to know more of how to apply it?
Yeah.
I actually have a question for you in regard to just the testing for personalities in general.
Okay.
Whether or not you feel that somebody who has, say, taken a similar personality test multiple times over the years, right? Because typically you've taken them from, when you start, maybe college or the end of high school, and then you experience a few of them over the changes of your job or whatnot. Sometimes it's even part of a hiring process. Do you think
Sure.
that there's any bias in having completed the test more than one time, or that you may answer the questions differently, maybe in one phase of your life versus another? So perhaps there is benefit in doing it, more than once. What is your thought on that? I can tell you, my boss is very she questions the use of these in the workplace. I think it's a nice tool to kind of get to know yourself, like you were saying about, the better you know yourself, the better you can, you succeed at whatever role you're in with the people that you work with. But what are your thoughts on there being bias to taking them multiple times or benefits of taking them multiple times?
Yeah, I don't. So that's a really good question about the bias. I hadn't actually considered there being any bias, having taking it multiple times. No matter when you take it throughout your career, you're gonna have you're gonna have things that show up potentially that are maybe different. You'll answer a question differently based on your most recent workplace. Um, I mean, what I've seen is I've seen people that have taken it and it's been 20 years and their results still the same. Like maybe their dot shifted a little bit more inward, so they're not as attached to that style because the dot location on the graph I'm talking about for disc, like the more out it is, outward of the graph, the more strongly inclined you are to that type. I've
Mhm.
seen it move, but really it stays in about the same general area. And I haven't really seen, I mean, unless there's like a serious traumatic experience where someone has, and I've seen this where they completely shift who they are and it's not something completely external.
Sure.
That's the one thing I would say about the change. I haven't really seen that. I don't think there's any bias in people taking it. They're not gonna. If you're trying to, here's the thing: like you're going to show up as that person in the workplace, whether you're stay it or not. My biggest caution for people is DISC is not supposed to be a pre-hire selection tool at all. Just
Mhm.
because I'm an I doesn't mean that I'm not going to be that right fit for the role.
Mhm.
It helps you understand the behavior and the tendencies, but it's not necessarily going to dictate the performance or success of a person in a particular role based on their style. What I
Mhm.
use it for teams is I want you to understand what your style is and how we work well together, because that one style is going to create friction with the other three styles. That's how it goes. You'll see D's and I's working maybe better together, but that doesn't mean that they don't have conflict. There's going to be conflict in everything. And so that's where if I'm an owner or manager, I'm using DISC to understand what the makeup of the team is to get as much variety in that team as I can, because
Mhm.
they're going to work the best together.
Right. But you're saying it's better not to have, say, in a team of five people, all of them be D or all of them be I. If you're being intentional, you should have a vast array of those.
Absolutely. If the team was all D's, nothing would ever get done because they'd be delegating things to everybody
All
else.
chiefs.
If they were right, if there was all I's, nothing would ever get done because we'd sit around and socialize and have a great time.
Yeah.
But like very, S's, no, oh no, you go first. Oh, I don't want to take it. Do you want to take it? No, you can't. Like it's gonna be this whole thing, and then C's are just gonna sit there and be like, okay, we just need to get more data, more data, more data, and they won't ever like move on to something. I mean, that's it. That's it. I'm trying to be funny when I say that, but like really, you need the blend of all of them on the team because they all have different strengths. But in that strength, you're gonna have conflict with others. I mean, the majority of the issues I see on teams is it's communication. It's because I'm just blurting out stuff because I'm an I and I'm cool with just, ready, fire, aim approach to communication. And the D's are cool with that, but the S's and C's are just kind of like, oh God, I'm so uncomfortable. I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, it's stylistically, if we don't think about it, we just go on autopilot, and then we're not necessarily thinking about how to communicate best with others. How is that person receiving me and my information?
I wonder then if there are any like resources that you have for DISC that would be worthwhile in terms of like team building for our team and forcing us to kind of work with similar then I don't know. I'm wondering where there are resources that once we find out, then what? How can we take this to the next level and really speak on it and include it in part of team building and
So that's where a DISC workshop, I'm not trying to pitch, but like that's where a DISC workshop and someone who does it well will have you go through, and I actually have them, okay, I'm going to have the S's sit together. I'm going to have them talk about it, but then I'm going to break you up into groups, and I'm going to have one of each style. And I actually want to even break them up into teams and say, okay, here, if you're working with Sarah and Sarah's an S, how can I best communicate with Sarah? And I want this to be as much about the person as we can. And the cool thing is when I have everybody go together in groups, like the D's all sit together and I'm like, okay, tell me about the day in the life of a D and what does that look like? And how do you want to be communicated to? There's power in people on your team saying that out loud to one another. Hey, that's what the S's, they were like, ask us questions. You want to get to know me? Ask me questions. That came from a group of S's that worked together at this digital marketing company I worked with. And they were like, yeah, just ask us questions. And then they were like, D's, slow down enough to ask us questions or make that part of our one-on-one or team check-ins. Have it be, I mean, some companies follow EOS but that's got the share good news. It's personal and business good news, because sometimes we want to jump right into the work and it's like, no, how can we connect as people? For the I's and S's, we love that. The D's and C's are probably like, oh, what a friggin' waste of time. Like, right. But that's where we're trying to meet everybody where they're at. And so that's where it's like those pieces you can try to incorporate into your culture. But some of those ideas are going to come with the group together. Like I had a group that said, hey, we're going to put our DISC style behind our names in Teams and Zoom or whatever, like the Slack, so that we can think about, and it's right in front of my face of, oh, that person's an I. I'm going to make sure I adjust my approach. And so you make it more than just a one-time occurrence. And then we put it on a shelf and kind of forget about it. Right.
Yeah. Now, is there any research in terms of like the trades and like where you typically will find your Ds? What roles do they play? And like what will you typically find for Is? What is their role typically in the industry? How does it apply?
I don't know of any resources in the trade specifically. I just go off of my own experience in doing this work. Is I see a lot of owners with a D or C, because they're, like I was saying, technicians turn owners. Eyes a lot of times you'll find in sales, an outside sales role could be, I've seen it in HR. I mean, there's no prerequisite of, okay, there's this personality type, you're going to be great. S, I think, is a great one to have in a CSR or dispatch role. Because dispatch is hard. It just really is. And I think they need to be this person that's accommodating, but like can also stand up for themselves. And it's just sort of a little bit of that. And then S's and C's you're going to have probably in the technician role, because I want someone who gives a crap about efficiencies and install and process and procedure, and they're following it. But I also want someone with a little bit of personality that can talk to Miss Jones. And if they have an option to repair versus replace, I can have that conversation. But I think in anything, it's just helping people to get out of their comfort zone a little bit. Again, like just because I maybe don't love talking to people doesn't mean you just avoid talking to people. Like how can we help you, partner you up with somebody who, if I'm a C, my opposite is going to be an I. There's going to be a lot of conflict there, but I can help. A C can slow down an I. A C can double check my work as an I. I love that. It's trying to get them to figure out how can I work better with people on my team, even if they're different styles from me?
Towards the same goal.
Correct. We're all going towards the same goal. We just have a very different way of getting there. No different than a CSR or a service or install. I mean, we have technicians that are trying to meet the end goal of servicing that customer. Well, we all want that customer's all of ours, right? So like we need to think about how can I, as the salesperson, make that install better. Well, maybe I can communicate with that S or C technician and give them a heads up on what's coming. And
Right.
there's just different things like that I think that can help in that.
Great. I appreciate that.
For
Well,
sure.
and this also has the adaptive styles too, right, Elise? To where like if you're with other people in that same one, or even if like you become more aware of your own personality traits, so then you like maybe overcompensate. But I think there's a lot of things to learn about the adaptive disc profile, right? Am I missing that?
You're going to have a primary style and you're going to have a secondary style. Yep. And so there can be, I'm saying like an S. There are ISs, there are DCs, there are blends of those as well. Yeah.
Well, my thought too was like, depending on where you start in your career and where you end up, there you may pick up qualities of some of the other ones along the way. I mean, even just in your personal life, like I know when I became a parent, I naturally had to become more of a D than I ever was because I needed to control, the way
Yep.
we're sailing the ship.
Yep.
Not that it was
Definitely.
natural for me necessarily by, but my environment required me to kind of step in that direction.
For sure. Yeah. I'm like, yes. There is no D at our house either. So the person that steps into that role to make the decisions and move things along. Yeah. I mean, you think about that in different roles in your life. So for sure.
Courtney put the 6 types of working genius as a book that
Hmm.
she found that as highly beneficial. I read that book as well, and I had heard so many people recommend it, and I was listening to it on audiobook. I'm like, is this the right book? But he does it in like a storytelling type of way, so different than a
Yep.
lot of other like self-help books, to where is like telling a story of a marketing agency, and so it just puts kind of like real scenarios and like a storyline behind it to these kind of different personality types and working geniuses, as he calls and stuff. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
an interesting read. And again, Patrick Lencioni, I think he does a very interesting way than how a lot of people do like self-help or leadership style books and stuff. So heads up if you start listening to that on audiobook and we're expecting something different. But that's a great resource as well too.
Yeah, Lencioni is great. He wrote Five Dysfunctions of a Team. So when I talk about trust, like that's the foundational element of a team. We can't have difficult conversations without trust. We can't. I mean that's where psychological safety and that whole idea of creating a safe environment where people do speak up and are able to do that without kind of retaliation. It's all underlying. It's trust. It's just now we've had more research on it thanks to a whole bunch of people on the most successful teams. That is the underlying factor, is the psychological safety, trust, and knowing that you can make a mistake and admit when you're wrong. And usually that's all based on the leader or the manager in that particular team, kind of going, yeah, it's so. Yes, that's a good one. Any other questions? Any other things that are like a particular scenario that's on your mind? And then I do want to share about the virtual series that I have next month, just because this content that we talked about today is like a little snippet from an entire virtual series that I'll start next month with all HVAC contractors, office managers, install managers. I have general managers and owners even in it, but I can share that with you. So we do have a $300 off offer for you. So let me just share my screen really quick. Are you seeing my screen still? Thought we stopped at some point. Oh, you are seeing it. Okay. So you're seeing the Maximize Your Impact virtual series, and you can scan the QR code at the bottom if you want more information. There's a flyer there. Depending on your distributor, you might even be able to get co-op dollars for it. So that's an option as well. And then my contact information if you want anything from me. I'm happy to help however I can. Even if you're just like, hey, I want to know more about DISC and how I can use it with my team. We can have a conversation.
Well, good. And Vicky asked in the chat, and she might should just reach out to you directly. But do you have a link for disc assessments that you trust and that you use, that or should someone contact you directly to get something of that?
Yeah, I need to administer it as a certified DISC practitioner. I get mine through Everything DISC, which is by Wiley. So I'm the one that actually, if I get your email address, I send those out. And there's a cost associated, but we can figure all that out. It can be a very minor cost. I'll say it that way.
Well, good stuff. Good stuff. Well, Elise, thank you so much. Ladies, we've enjoyed all the conversation, and sometimes it helps people, even if we don't see it in the chat or all the comments going along. Sometimes it's resonating with people and it's helpful. So when you guys are participating, so thank you so much. So Elise, loved all the valuable insight that you had. Put your screen back up if you don't mind. So that way, if
Oh, sure.
you're interested, they could scan that QR code just so they could get a little bit more information about some things that you have coming up. And, DISC is helpful in any industry. So in the trades, but also like this things that you can carry on to your personal life, but also if you ever move on to something different, who would ever do that? But just in case, it's great practical stuff that you can apply to every area. So, Elise, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you for your time. And we will see you guys at Pantheon September 17th through 19th. Be watching your emails as we might adjust and move a few things for some of our meetings that might fall during Pantheon. So be on the lookout on our social media pages and in your emails. I got some of you guys DM'd me directly about updating your email information. If that's ever the case, just shoot us a Facebook message or you can shoot us an email info at, let me not tell you guys wrong. It is, it just went away from me.
I'll be at Pantheon too. I'll see you ladies there.
Yes, yes. Where am I? I'm losing it. STLadyTitans@gmail.com. That is an email for us, or info@ladytitans.org. So there you go. Jessica got it down the thing. Info@ladytitans.com. I apologize. So thank you, ladies. Appreciate your time. I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of your Tuesday, and we'll see you next time. Oh, .org is right. Bye.